You're listening to the Good Food CFO podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Delavan, and with me, as always, is our producer, Chelsea Deere. Hey, Chelsea.
Hey, Sarah. We're back with another Bobby Yacht episode today, back-to-back Bobby Yachts, actually. Today, you are speaking with Daniel Goetz, the founder of Good Pop. But before we jump into that conversation, I have another member highlight for you.
Yes, love that.
This highlight is Nicole Prodis of Break-In Snacks. Break-In Snacks is a mom-founded snack brand that brings homemade taste and quality to on-the-go snacking for the whole family. Break-In makes chewy, gluten-free granola bites that come in 4-ounce snack bags made for busy families that want quality and convenience. Break-In bites are made with avocado oil and no refined sugar, gums, fillers, or other junk, just clean, nutritious ingredients that you'd find in your own kitchen. So if you're listening and you want to learn more about Break-In Snacks, you can visit www.breakinsnacks.com. And Nicole, thank you so much for becoming a member.
Yes, it was so fun to meet Nicole, learn a little bit about her business. It's always so fun to hear these highlights from our members and to see our community grow week over week over week. As you mentioned at the top of the episode, Chelsea, Daniel, our guest this week, is the founder of Good Pop. I'm obsessed with their strawberry popsicles. Daniel and his team were kind enough to send us some pops prior to the episode. They've got a fan in me and my husband. He started Good Pop while he was a student at the University of Texas at Austin. And since then, Good Pop has become nationally recognized for creating market-leading, cleaned-up takes on nostalgic classics. As he's grown Good Pop from an Austin pushcart to one of the US's top performing frozen novelty brands, he's remained true to his day one roots that include authenticity, transparency, and an unwavering commitment to use Good Pop as a vehicle for social good. From his childhood birthday parties featuring ways to give back to the number one fruit pop brand at Whole Foods Market, Daniel's focus on culture and community always comes first. And we really get to explore those things and what giving back to community and also really driving for change in our industry looks like today for Good Pop. So I'm really excited for people to hear about that.
I love that. And, Sarah, listening to this conversation, it's taking me back to a few weeks ago on the podcast. You talked about how there's no like one way to build a business, right? But there is a financial framework. I thought that that was kind of apropos here as well, like not just from the financial side of the framework, but as I think back to all of the Bobby Yacht conversations that you've had over the years, again, building a business on your own terms, right? Like everyone does that differently, but there seems to be a framework there as well. When we talk about things like having financial discipline or like financial vision, right? Strategy, building deep relationships, taking growth slowly and taking the time to really learn your environment around you within that slow growth and also knowing what your competitive advantage is and knowing your customer. We hear those things over and over and over, and we hear them today in this conversation as well.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, those are a common thread among all Bobby Yachts, but they're like so different and unique to each business, even within each of those categories. And I love, just to highlight a couple of the things that Daniel and I talk about, is taking his time, prioritizing profitability. And, that doesn't mean not borrowing money, but to be bootstrapping, to prioritize profitability and how that informed the actions that he took in his business, both from a spending perspective, but also from a growth perspective. I think there's a lot that, founders can learn from a founder like Daniel, who's been in business for 16 years now. He gets really honest about what it takes to be an entrepreneur in an extremely difficult industry, and his belief that if he didn't have a passion, for the purpose of the brand, he doesn't know if he would still be in the founder's seat with this company so many years later. And I think the other thing that I really like, admired in Daniel during this conversation was his willingness to be open and honest with me. I asked some questions about, his planning and how he approached the decisions he's made throughout his years in business. And he was really honest and he said, I haven't shared this with people before, but you don't always know exactly what the future is going to look like or what decision you will be making, but you can take your time and observe and make decisions based on what is right for you, even when, or especially when people around you are doing things differently. And I just really am kind of hinting at a specific part of our conversation, but I really loved his honesty. So it's a great Bobby Out episode. I'm super excited for, our listeners to hear from Daniel.
All right, great. Well, why don't we take a quick break, Sarah, and then we'll jump right in.
Sounds great.
Over 70% of early stage food brands fail due to cash flow issues, incorrect pricing, and thin margins. The Good Food CFO breaks through that noise. Partnering with founders from pre-revenue through their first million in sales, we have created a first of its kind financial software that is designed to teach you to understand your numbers, price for profit, and make confident financial decisions that support long-term sustainability. The Good Food CFO's proven framework is helping good food businesses thrive. Your business is next. Head to thegoodfoodcfo.com to purchase now. Now, back to the show.
Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here too. This feels like an episode, a little while in the making. We've been looking forward to it for a couple of weeks. For those who maybe don't know Good Pop yet, can you tell us a little bit about the brand and your origin story?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Daniel Goetz. I started this little popsicle business back in college. So I've been doing this now for 16 years. I'm based in Austin, and at the time I was at the University of Texas and went to Mexico and fell in love with these fresh fruit paletas that you would find on the street from like locally grown produce. Just completely fell in love with the flavors, the freshness, and got back to Austin. And while we had the natural food movement really kind of blossoming here, there was nothing quite like it anywhere in natural food stores or, regular grocery. And so I didn't set out to start this business, but I just kind of kept thinking about it. And I found myself designing logos and menus for the farmers market while I was in class. And one thing led to another. And I ended up putting my middle school lawn mowing savings into making a batch of Good Pops. And
Oh.
that was 16 years ago.
So how does a brand go from lawn mowing money and its first batch to 16 years later? I mean, what were the early days of the transition? Like, were you selling at farmers markets? Were you selling to your friends and family?
Yeah, I think there are different ways to get to the same place, but I think the common denominators are really just about passion and purpose for what you're doing because of how difficult it gets along the way. And so it has to be something that you really love. And for me, it's always been about the mission and how it's not just about a great product, but it's also about all of the good um, that it enables us to do for the communities that support us and for the farmers and this throughout the entire supply chain. So for me, it's always been about that more so than it has been about just making a product and selling it. And I think
Yeah,
it's a non-starter if you don't have that sort of secondary source of passion.
I agree. It's too hard.
It's
It's too
way too
hard to
hard.
like stay committed and keep going if you don't have that purpose that exists there. I feel the same way about what we're doing with our work.
100%. And so I think like it just takes that extra bit to get you up and going and excited years and years into it. So there's the passion piece, and then it's going to be a roller coaster, and that's just the entrepreneurial journey and being aware that that's what this is. And then it
Hmm.
doesn't really end. It's like kind of the never-ending roller coaster. If you're understanding of that, then um, you become less emotional when things are super high or super low, and you can kind of maintain throughout it. And enjoy the ride. And so I think that's another thing that's, 16 years in is just very obvious. Like maybe the first 5 years or so, the roller coaster, maybe the first 7 years, like you really feel it, and it's just like the end of the world when you get bad news from a retailer or something
Hmm.
happens in production. Um, but when you're in that state where it's the end of the world, feeling like you can't really troubleshoot, you can't really find solutions. And so it's
Hmm.
like learning how to regulate that has been really helpful to me.
That's awesome. Okay, so your early days, you've got, your early batches of product. Did you start out selling at farmers markets? Or
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, you totally asked me that question, and I
it's
totally
okay.
just kind of, I just answered in a whole other way.
That's it.
Um, so I started out making the idea was in back in 2009. I put my lawn mowing savings into making 18,000 popsicles to then take them out to Austin City Limits to ACL. It's a music festival in
Okay.
Austin, and it's always super hot. So like, and I always wish that I could have a popsicle when I'm out there. So the idea was make all these popsicles. There's 70,000 people that are going to be there every day, and we'll be able to sell all of them, and then use that money to go kickstart and launch this little popsicle business that we're going to take to farmers markets and events and then eventually natural grocery stores. And so we made all of these pops, spent 3 straight weeks doing production all day and all night long. And we get out there and it was cold and rainy and it was a massive disaster. We only sold 4 of them.
Oh,
Yeah, it was,
wow.
yeah. And so that was supposed to be our launch, and that was literally my life savings, just like in 17,996 popsicles. And like I had to load them up in my Toyota and take them to the nearest cold storage, um, which was like an hour and a half away, just like cranked the AC and drove them out there, put them
Oh,
on a pallet in there. And then I spent the next 8 months trying to figure out what I was going to do with my
yeah.
life and with Good Pop. So I guess in that moment in time, I didn't really think about like this ACL thing not working out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and then in April, let's see, it was early 2020. So spent 2010 finishing school and then, but I didn't forget about Good Pop. And in early 2011, I worked on the website. We weren't really even a company. I had these random popsicles in storage in Taylor, Texas, but I was working on goodpop.com and I did some SEO. And like a week after, when you search organic natural popsicles, we were the first search result.
Wow.
And then the week after that, a company reached out to us and asked if we would put in a bid for a sort of marketing project where we would make 70,000 popsicles and for a solar panel company. So I, submitted this RFP without a way to make popsicles,
Yeah.
without
As you
really
do. Yep.
having a company. And a couple days later, we hear back that we got the bid
Wow.
and we got 50% down for that project. And I hand stamped 70,000 popsicle sticks, me and my friends, and we made these pops. We found a local palateria in Houston, made these pops, and then we delivered them and we got the final payment. And that check comes in, it was $40,000 in profit. And we took that money and put it straight into buying fruit, buying packaging for Good Pop, and relaunching the business. Um,
Wow.
and I started delivering I was making pops at night, wake up first thing in the morning, deliver them around town, around Austin. And then in the afternoon, I would do samplings. And I did that for several years, like 3 years.
Wow.
And those were the early days.
Yeah. I want to just like take a moment to just like something that's on my mind is there are so many brands and so many like founders who create something that's very purpose driven, mission driven. It's a really good product. I love your popsicles. I'm obsessed with the strawberry
Oh,
one.
oh, thank you.
Can't, yeah, I love them. Thank you for sending some to my home for me to try them. But when you talk about the SEO, like you can't just make a delicious product, an amazing product, a well-sourced product. You can't just make that and not have any strategy for how you're going to get it to people, right? Because what you described was you had a strategy that if the weather was different, probably would have worked out perfectly, right? But it wasn't. And so you had a different result. You didn't give up. You were like, okay, what's another strategy? Or how do I continue this business? Maybe you weren't thinking SEO will help me sell these pops. I don't know what you were thinking exactly, but you took action that like these actions could have a specific outcome. I think an RFP is probably wasn't anywhere in your mind, right? It was probably more like website visitors and maybe we can sell some products online or something like that. But I just think it's so important to kind of like pause on that moment of had a strategy, didn't work, found another path to how do we get this name for this brand out there, and those efforts result in something that then creates the future of the business, right? Because kind of go ongoing. It's critical.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, Sarah, I think the theme early on, it for me was and you say I have a strategy and like yeah, but there wasn't really there were mostly like checkpoints and
Mm,
I didn't really think about okay, well what happens if we get to that
okay.
checkpoint? What happens if? And so um that's a really difficult place to operate from as a founder, as an early entrepreneur where you're trying to get things off the ground and you decide to you decide to start selling product to grocery stores, like store by store, delivering them yourselves. But you don't think about what happens after that. Like
Hmm.
what does that lead to? Well, that leads to you're going to need to you're going to need to produce product all night long because there's not time because you're delivering during the day and the product has to move off shelf. And so you're going to have to demo. And for me, clearly like there's a pattern there because I decided to go out and try to sell popsicles at ACL just because everyone that I had been to, the weather was great, didn't think about what if it's not. And so it's really hard to stop the bus or change things or find efficiencies once you're already going.
Yeah.
Um and so I in retrospect and like when I talk to peers who are just starting businesses, like it's always worth just taking a pause, making sure like you don't need to take forever. Like you can still move really fast, but make sure the foundation is right. Make sure you have the ability to manufacture this product and ability to scale it up. Like just have contingencies in place and then go out there and make it happen versus making it happen and then trying to figure it out later because it's really, really tough. And it took a long time
Yeah.
for me to actually get caught up to demand because yeah, if you don't deliver a product to a retailer that's on shelf, like you'll lose your shelf space. So you have to keep that going.
Yeah. We see sometimes where people make the sale first without really understanding what the true costs are going to be, right, at a certain volume or in a
Absolutely.
certain channel. And so I think you're making a great point, and just another potential outcome of that is, not just efficiencies, but or lack of efficiencies, but lack of money. Because like, oh shit, I charged 50K and I just spent 52 to make
I
this thing
know.
happen. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah. Working capital and just and the entire the model and everything is also really challenging in this space, even if you do have experience in it. Like there are fees on fees everywhere,
mhm.
and the true cost is always different than what you're expecting, your cost of goods. So like, yeah, it's just really it's really difficult to correct for that once that train is has left the station.
Yeah,
Like it's just so hard to do. So it's always worth spending the time, take an extra month, take an extra 6 weeks, and just get it right before you press play. I think is like if I could do it all over again, that's easily the first thing I would do.
I love that advice. So this leads me to my next question. Good Pop is currently sold D2C via e-commerce, and then you also, from what I understand, work with regional and national distributors. And I know from some of the questions we sent you, prior to our recording, that you were pressured or felt pressured early on to take outside capital, but that you decided not to go that route and to bootstrap instead. You talked a little bit in that intake form about like then being able to grow without investor expectations and just really staying aligned with your mission. Now I'm curious. I had some sort of like questions ready to go, but now I'm curious, like, was that was that like super well thought out, or was that just like I don't want to do it and I'm gonna grow on my own? Sort of, I'm curious about the sort of origins of that one before I get into my other questions.
It wasn't super well thought out. And you're definitely the only person that I've told that to. But now everyone else knows. But no, it wasn't. Actually, when I first started out, 22, 23 years old, and like you think that the goal of all of this is the headline of a fundraise or the headline of
Hmm.
an exit or whatever.
Yeah,
And so like and entrepreneurs still feel that pressure today. And so, but there's just more information now than there was before. And
yeah,
and so at that time I thought the goal was to raise capital because then you can go and do this thing and build a great business. And as I was getting this off the ground, I didn't want to take anyone's money and lose it. And I wanted to understand the business first and understand like what our sweet spot is as a business. Is it farmers markets? Is it retail? Is it grocery?
yeah,
Um, and so along the way, I'm sort of peeling back the layers of the onion of our business model, and like I'm like realizing, okay, there's a lot more to be done here before I'm comfortable taking on capital. And then now I'm in the industry for a couple of years, and I start to see that my peers and friends who are in a similar sort of emerging position within the natural category who have raised capital, and just seeing how unhappy and miserable they are,
mm,
feeling an immense amount of pressure, feeling like they just can't wait to exit, and just trying to get to the end. And
yeah,
I started to realize that that's not, I was loving what I was doing every day, even though it was really hard, and I was sleeping on couches, and I was living at my mom's house and staying with friends, and I lived rent free for the first 3, 4 years of Good Pop in order to get it off the ground. And I was loving every second of it. And I realized that there's another path, there's another way to do this, without the external pressures of, investors. And so then I started to think, okay, well, when we reach 1 million in revenue, then maybe it'll be a good time. Or maybe when
right,
we get like, maybe when we get regional or national with Whole Foods, like that'd be a great time to raise capital. And then you kind of get there and you're like, well, we're profitable, we're happy, we're having fun. Like we could probably keep going and not need to do that. And so, no, it wasn't really that well thought out. It was just realizing that we could do this without it. And that only happened by being really scrappy up front, making tough decisions, saying no to some retailers when we had to, because
mm,
there literally was not cash to do it, forcing ourselves to be profitable. And then once you do that, you realize like we can run this business without, can just do it on our own.
yeah. I want to ask a question about the idea of forcing yourself to be profitable. Can you share a little bit about like what that looks like day to day? Because I meet a lot of founders. I'm fractional CFO,
Right.
in the day to day when I'm not, doing a financially focused podcast. And, sometimes we hear like, but I need these things. I need to spend money on
Yeah.
these things. I need. And it's easy for me, right, from my seat to go, I don't think that you need that. What is the ROI on that expense? Or, what is the true strategy here, for what we need versus what we feel like we need or what we want? But I'd love to hear from a founder. What does that sort of look like in ensuring that you're profitable and really making decisions that align with that?
Both are right. The entrepreneur needs that thing in order to maybe get to the next place, right? But
Hmm.
also like you're right too. It's like you don't need that. Like you need to focus on margin and you need to focus on more profitable customers. But a lot of times you need to invest in in some of these customers in a deeper way, like refills and slotting and other things to get the product sampled and get it tried to where you can have the chance to stay on shelf and get repeat and all of those things. So kind of
Mm.
need both things. I think the first thing was just like I've really put a lot of pressure on myself to be profitable because there was no other way to pay the bills. There was no other way to pay my employees. There's no other way to pay my suppliers and vendors. And what that starts out with is just understanding your total costs. And if, a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, like we don't like to get in the weeds. Like we want to be out there doing the stuff and sampling
Mm.
the product. And, we don't want to be so obsessive over minutia, but you have to be because that the minutia, the pennies is like where the money leaks out of the business. And that's the difference is like being obsessed with the minutia. And that could be in so many different types of ways. That could be on your sourcing side, understanding where your ingredients come from, the farmers, what they actually have to deal with, and being able to work directly with them, finding out ways to find win-win partnerships with them. Maybe it's a contract for X number of pounds of a particular ingredient that would help them give you a slightly better cost versus
Yeah.
just a lot of times it's easier. Like if the entrepreneur is like more of a marketing background, like you just want to market and create demand and just buy a product turnkey from a co-packer, from a manufacturer, and you don't care about where the components come from or you don't care about efficiencies. And I get that, we're not all wired that way, but
Yeah.
that type of minutia is where businesses are allowed to stay in business for 16 years or for a long time, is like
Yeah.
understanding every aspect of it. And then it's all about finding win-win relationships or win-win-win, where everybody does well, where it's your suppliers, the business, and the retailers, to be profitable. Like you have to be scrappy and fight for what's right across all three. And so that's, I think, the tip of the iceberg before you even
Yeah.
get started.
Yeah. So I imagine that this desire goal to be profitable, this, what you were seeing and the desire to remain without, outside investment. So, bootstrapped, self-funded, however you want to call it, impacted the rate of growth of the business in terms of top line revenue or even just like expansion in terms of like new channels. Did you ever feel like I'm not doing this fast enough or I should be in regional distribution when you weren't yet, or I should be in national? Or were you able to just go, this is where I am and we'll get there when the numbers are right and the time is right?
Yeah, it's hard because we're all human beings and we all want external validation of what we're doing. And so what you're describing is that's just external pressure of like, I need to be able to justify to others why I'm doing this. And so I
Mhm.
should be national. I should be bigger. I should be getting these big stories written about Good Pop or about my company. So yeah, that's like a natural human instinct and feeling. But the reality is, as entrepreneurs, like we have to love what we do on our own, not for external validation, but because like we intrinsically love it. And so once you get to that place, then it's not about the ego. It's not about like, external wins of like just splashy stuff on LinkedIn or, PR. It's like running a great business and finding those win-win-win relationships and being comfortable with that. And so for me, like Good Pop and what felt right for me was looking at deeper, not wider. And that was my expansion and growth strategy, was just like, let's go deeper because it's going wide it's impossible. It was impossible. We don't have a marketing budget to cover the entire US. One person in sales, me, like I can't go talk to every retailer, but what we can do is have really deep relationships with the right retailers that have the right shoppers, and then go build those really deep relationships with those customers. And so that it just, that's the way that we made this manageable, was just deeper,
Yeah.
not wider. And I always felt
Yeah.
really good about that because ultimately you have to be the best performing. You can't, it's not about being the fastest growing. It's about performance.
Yeah.
So even a lot of like the investment community today, that resonates. Like they want to know that they have
Mm,
brands that are actually working with consumers and getting repeat and going deep with their existing
yeah.
customer base.
May I ask, are you still operating without outside capital and funding?
We are. Yeah, we about 5 years ago, we started working with ABL, like kind of revolver, to help
Hmm.
with working capital, and I think that's been a big unlock for our business. But
Yeah.
even going back like a decade, I got to a point where we had like $140,000 worth of invoices due the next day,
Mm.
and we had like, I don't know, $8,000 in the bank waiting on one of our distributors to pay us. And I woke up at 3 in the morning. This is in 2015. So yeah, this is 10 years ago. I woke up at 3 in the morning, you know, panicking,
Hmm.
borderline, probably like panic attack,
Yeah.
because we can't keep operating without paying our suppliers.
Yeah.
And I go into Google and I type in like working capital, just like something very basic.
Yeah.
Nothing specific. I didn't know what the hell I was looking for. And I get to like page 4 of Google and I see American Express working capital terms or something like that. All American Express card holders eligible. And I had just gotten this American Express card the year before. So I start clicking through it in like, I don't know, a few minutes, it's done. They're like, all right, your application has been submitted. I'm like, okay. And then I go back to sleep and I wake up and I check my email and it says that you have been approved for $150,000 in working capital. And
Amazing.
um, I paid all my invoices that day and we kept operating. So I say that because like I guess we're finding my pattern of, all everything that I've been trying to not do the last decade. But it's just a reminder to like keep relationships warm with sort of whether it's working capital or other, like if you're trying to bootstrap, like finding the right type of debt, the right type of partners, and just kind
Yeah.
of keeping those warm for when you need it, for when, let's say you get a new retailer on board and the the pricing and the margin is right and the trade and everything looks good and you've got a good model to go into this new retailer, to fund you just need to fund pipe fill, like inventory for them, and then it'll be
Yeah.
profitable after that. That type of scenario is one where you would want debt, not equity. I think a lot of times, like you don't want to give
For
up
sure.
equity to
Yeah.
just fill an order.
Yeah.
And having those relationships warm, or a year in advance, to where like you can kind of check in with these people versus waking up with a panic attack at 3 in the morning, and finding something on page 4 of Google would be probably the way to go.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
interesting. I'm a huge fan of American Express and I'm like trying to manifest like an Amex
it's
commercial
happening.
or
We're
something. You
doing
know what I mean?
we
Yeah.
just did it. Yeah, it's done. Yeah, they can use that.
Yeah. But you know, I think it's interesting to me that some people, this is not all people, I'm just like thinking of some examples. Like there's sort of a fear of debt. Like on one end, there's like a fear of debt and like owing money to people. On the other end, there's this like big desire to, win that funding, that outside capital. And then in the middle are people who are like, I'm okay taking on debt, but like not too much. And like, how should I do it right? And I think that lines of credit, working capitals, revolving, loans that are appropriate for your business are like really great options. Like I'm a huge fan of 0% interest credit card, which, most businesses can get, like the first time you get a card, you know what I mean? So like that first year, take advantage of it. You know what I mean? Use it wisely still, but like there's not these extremes, it's virtually impossible to operate a business where you never have to borrow to get
Yeah.
to that next phase. I talk a lot about financial sustainability. That doesn't mean you'll never have to borrow, but how can you do it in ways that make sense for your business, where you're borrowing an appropriate amount, where you can afford to pay it back, things like that. I totally agree with you. Like, tap into a line of credit in terms of like what you finding out what you're a bit like have access to, and pull it when you need it. You know what I mean? And just build a relationship with the bank, whatever it looks like. I love that sort of keep these relationships warm tip for folks.
To your point, like that's one piece of the total puzzle of like just
Mm.
having that warm. It's not going to solve everything, like, but certain situations like you mentioned are gonna like that'll be the right model. I think before you even get into that is it's all about fundamentals and making sure that you're making the right margin that you need to and that you're not over promoting and all that, but also having really great supplier relationships. So a lot of times, like if you're just starting out, for example, packaging, like finding a really great packaging supplier, there's always this like chicken or the egg of, well, if I order 10,000 units, the price is this, but if I order
Yeah.
50,000, the price is a third of the price, but I can't order 50,000 because I don't have cash to do that. So I have to order the 10,000 and then, but I'll be profitable later. Like what I realized early on is like these packaging companies, and a lot of times even fruit suppliers, they're really large. And if they're bought into your vision and they're bought into what you're doing, they might be willing to work with you on specific terms. And so a lot of times if you put a contract in for 50,000 units because you'll sell it over the course of 6 months, they'll produce that efficiently, therefore finding the cost savings, and then you can draw down and
Hmm.
you could place 5 POs of 10,000 units per piece and then pay net 30 off that. And if you do that with packaging and do that with a couple of different ingredient suppliers, and if you can maybe do that with a co-packer, all of a sudden you've you've got you've got some breathing room to go
Yeah.
operate this business. And again, like this is what I'm talking about as far as before you start, it's worth, rather than just like pitching retailers or pitching investors, take that deck that you've got to pitch retailers and investors and also go pitch co-packers and also go pitch
Mm,
a packaging company and say, hey, it's the same conversation. You're asking them
I love
essentially.
that.
Yeah. So that's been really effective in just stretching things out early on. Even today is getting your partners and stakeholders and suppliers bought into your vision. And
I really love that advice. I think that's so great. I'm curious, over these 16 years, it seems, as you discussed, like there's highs and lows, they look a little bit different in year one versus year, 15 and 16, I'm sure. But what
yeah,
would you say have been some of the biggest challenges for Good Pop over the years, or maybe the most significant?
the biggest challenge is as you scale, not losing quality, and that quality in product, quality in internal morale or culture. Like things should get better, not worse as you scale.
Yeah.
Meaning like a lot of times when you start out at the farmers markets, and in order to be commercializable for a co-packer, like they're going to try to force you into sacrificing quality for speed or for something that they already procure. That opportunity is actually, I mean, that's where a lot of companies will fall off. They're like, well, yeah, I need to scale, so I'm going to have to go work with this co-packer, and they can't use this ingredient. They have to go use that.
Yeah.
And the same thing internally from a culture standpoint. It's like the pressures to grow. Sometimes you will make a hire that is not values aligned just in the rush of needing to fill a seat, or there's the pressure of like asking your team to do too much and when they
Mm,
get burnt out. And so I think the hardest thing is finding the right balance and finding ways to constantly improve and make things better
yeah.
across every aspect of the business when there's kind of just chaos swirling around at all times. Um,
Yeah.
that's that's just the hardest. That's the hardest part about being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then looking back, what's a big win that you had, either as a founder or as a company that like maybe in the moment you didn't realize was like that was a great moment. That was a win that's gonna really kind of, help us in the long run or something like that.
I don't know. am so bad about celebrating wins. I just don't do it. And I need to, like it's not a good trait. You want to be able to appreciate them. Um, for me, I think it's mostly about the wins need to be very obviously team wins, and people need to feel really
Mm.
good, and recognize along the way. Yeah, looking back on it, the American Express terms and was a huge win. We wouldn't have been able to keep going. And so was this like Sungevity solar panel popsicle tour in
Yeah,
2011. Like that's a huge win. We would have never been able to keep going.
yeah,
There's so many moments like that though, Sarah. It's like it's it's just really trying to be appreciative and grateful for them and making sure that the team feels appreciated and recognized, because like this is really hard work and in this sort of emerging startup world, and
yeah.
the people who are along with us and our colleagues like along with us on this journey like need to feel very appreciated, and that's not always a very big apparent win in real time. It's all the little
Yeah,
all the little ones stack up.
yeah, I agree with that. I think that's actually a great answer. So thank you for that, Daniel. Before we wrap up, I know that this year, in addition to launching a collab with Smart Sweet and a partnership with Disney, which is super exciting, you also launched the Good Food Collective, which I would love to know more about. So if you can talk a little bit about the mission, and then is this something that like other good food founders, mission-driven founders can join you in?
Well, the answer to that second question is yes, but let me tell you what it is before what I started to see over the course of the last, I mean, it's really been the last decade that since I've been like out of farmers market world and more and like, okay, we're trying to compete for shelf space against, yeah, some natural food companies, but mostly against big food companies. And you start to kind of peel the layers back across big food, and you
Yeah,
start to see that they have a lot of power from a lobbying standpoint, whether it's FDA or USDA, different food guidelines. Big food lobbies have their hand in a lot of what has become food policy in this country.
mhm,
And Good Pop is fighting areas like big sugar, in our side of the business, big plastic in a lot of ways, in our quest to be plasticless as a business. Like we
yeah,
want, um, and you start to realize that within our own little spaces, you're hitting kind of we're all hitting a ceiling, and that ceiling is typically in DC, and it's all these special interest groups that have been lobbying for 50, 60, 70 years to get things done, to promote more of what they do, whether it's big ag,
yeah,
big plastic, big sugar, etc. So I'm starting to see this, and then I'm starting to talk about it with my friends who are in other categories like maybe beverages or snacks, and they're dealing with the exact same issues in their category, but just different players. I kind of just got sick of talking about it. And it's like, if we're all trying to fix this thing in our own little way, and yet there's over 650 food lobbies, none of which are food companies lobbying on behalf of consumers to do better by
yeah,
consumers. So, long-winded way of saying that this is the first natural food lobby, and it's for food companies that actually care about trying to make things better for consumers, more transparent, more real food, less of the status quo of just trying to sell our stuff to consumers at
yeah.
at their detriment. We launched this, so the Good Food Collective. We launched this back in July with 25 members, companies of all different sizes. When we launched, we had some substantial, I mean, some really good sized businesses, and there's over $1 billion of food retail sales that are coming out of Good Food Collective members. So we actually have
Wow.
some strength. Since that launch, we've had around 100 additional members apply, and it's essentially just it's a platform where we can bring our collective voices together and try to make progress by food companies on behalf of consumers. And yes, we would
Yeah.
love anyone who wants to see the food system change for the better to check us out and apply. Every year, we're going to be voting collectively and tackling one of the largest issues facing consumers in food.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure to put a link to the site and more information in the show notes, but can you
Awesome.
share where folks can go to learn more?
Yeah, so it's good-food-collective.com. And it's also you can find us on LinkedIn. We post regular updates there. Good Food Collective. I would love for you to check it out. Yeah, we're starting to see a lot of momentum. Right now, we're working on the front of pack labeling initiative that the FDA is considering. So what we're aiming to do is the FDA is going to bring the nutrition facts panel from the side of pack to the front. And
Okay.
there's been a lot of data that shows that consumers don't really know what that nutrition facts panel even means on the side of pack. There's very low understanding of that. Other groups want to put a warning label for products that are high in sugar or fat or
Mm,
sodium. Good Food Collective created our own mock-up, and it's our own bug that is the only one that actually gives consumers a chance to learn more. So there's a QR code that explains that if you want to learn more as a consumer, you can go and learn about what it means if your diet is high in sodium or added
right.
sugar, and some recommendations of things that you could do. And so that's gotten a lot of traction within the FDA, and they're considering it for this mandatory front of pack thing that's currently being reviewed. So we're taking on those types of issues.
That's really neat. Well, I'm excited to learn more about it myself and support you guys in any
Thank
way
you.
that I can. Our mission at the Good Food CFO is rooted in changing our food industry.
Mm,
We believe that in order for the industry to change, we have to have more profitable, what we call good food businesses. So our mission is to keep companies in business, good mission-driven businesses, in business, because the more good food businesses are operating, whether it's regionally, hyper locally, nationally, you know what I mean, the better food we can get on people's tables, and the less control the corporations have, conglomerates, if you will, on our food system. So I always thought I would be on like the food sourcing side of things. That's where my career started. I thought, I'm going to be the one physically bringing better food to people, good food to people, and supporting the farmers. But I've found my niche in the financial side of things, and I love that you guys are tackling, you know, it sounds like things that are like passing through the FDA, the USDA, right? That you can have a say in, kind of picking up on those things. I just think that's so cool. Also trying to manifest, the ear of whomever I can get in the government to talk about the many ways the industry is corrupt. When you talk about anti-competition and you talk about the fees and the ways that the industry are structured with distributors and big retailers and stuff. And these are hidden realities from consumers, just like the hidden reality of how many brands actually own the vast majority of products on shelf in a grocery store, right? Like it goes on and on and on. So we're proud to be doing this work, and I'm excited that the collective is doing work, collectively as well, in addition to the brands that you all are leading. So thank you for that.
yeah, no, thank you, Sarah. It sounds wonderful. It's an amazing mission that you guys have. Yeah, this has been a ton of fun.
Good. I agree.
I need to get a hat that says Good Food Collective, and
You
maybe,
do.
yeah, like that just matches that. That'd be perfect.
I know we got our Good Food CFO hats. We're doing a rebrand right now. We're launching software. It's designed specifically for mission-driven food brands, helping to understand margin, understand,
Yeah.
channel profitability, make forecasting easy, for early stage founders and those who just like aren't quote unquote numbers people, to help them just kind of easily understand the finances of their business and make really informed decisions. We think that can help, with our overall mission. So we got our hats to celebrate the upcoming launch. So
Amazing.
thank,
I
yeah,
would have loved to have software like that when I was first starting out. Just sounds, yeah, and even today, like there's so many moving parts to these types of businesses. So I'm excited to check out your software.
thank
Too.
you. We're starting out with MVP, and then we've got really big plans to make, more advanced modeling available to people, but with a focus on simplicity, jargon free, user friendly, all that stuff. So I'll be sure to, send you a link so you can check it out.
I would love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Daniel. It has been my
Yeah.
pleasure to talk with you this afternoon. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day. to
No,
chat with
thank
me.
you. No, thank you. And we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
All
Bye.
right.
Wanting to dive deeper into your financial strategy? Visit thegoodfoodcfo.com to learn more about the Good Food CFO software. We'll be back with a brand new episode in 2 weeks.
This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended to provide personalized financial, tax, or legal advice. Every business is different, so please consult with qualified professionals about your specific business and financial situation. Any actions you take based on what you hear on this show are at your own risk.